First, I'll introduce myself. I'm Matt McCawley. I'm a managing director and head of our media practice at Wizeline. Let's see if this works. Neat. So Wizeline was founded by Bismarck Lepe, who maybe some of you know. He founded Ooyala, a video tech platform, a number of years ago. These lights are incredibly bright. It's great. So Bismarck founded Ooyala in San Francisco and tapped into the engineering talent and product development talent in Guadalajara, Mexico. And that ecosystem really worked well. So when we started Wizeline, he founded the company both in San Francisco and in Guadalajara at the same time to tap again into that talent. Since then, we've grown across the globe. We do have delivery centers all over Mexico, Thailand, Vietnam, and now Barcelona, Spain. And then we have field offices to service clients in Sydney, New York, San Francisco, where the headquarters are, and Miami. Because of our DNA in media, we work with a number of big media companies. We have since day one, which has been really great, tapping into some of those existing relationships from all of our pasts. We've worked with Discovery, Nat Geo, among many others. And so, because of this DNA in media, we've seen a number of different trends. And one of the things that we do is we provide technology, engineering, design services, but we also are a trusted advisor in terms of how to utilize technologies like AWS to be more efficient, be more effective in media workflows, in creating experiences for customers or end users that excite and delight. So that's what we really focus on. With that, I want to talk about a couple of the trends that we're seeing that I'm sure you guys are also seeing. And then talk about how we tackle those with clients, and again, what kind of tools, technology, and process we use. So business models are constantly changing, right? Everyone's testing out, even with streaming, which model works best. Is it better to do subscription, ad-driven, a combination of the two? So lots of different things are always at play, and everyone's constantly experimenting. There's a need to continue to run a lot of the core legacy businesses while also bringing that innovation component to media. Which is a challenge, right? Keeping the legacy print business alive, for example, in publishing, while also adapting to digital workflows. There are constant ways that people are consuming media, and that challenges us to continue to meet customers where they want to be with the information or the content that they want to have. Constant competition from the big tech companies who are both a distribution partner as well as content competitors, right? And competing for eyeballs. And lastly, because of all those, the changing behaviors of end users is something that we have to constantly keep up with. And so understanding what people want when they want it, being able to, again, adapt and provide that to them is a constant challenge and something that we need to tackle in order to be efficient and effective. So it's sort of like a game of Survivor. Some companies are doing it better than others, right? And I think the key theme that we see is that being able to meet demand on demand is the challenge. So having flexibility and scalability to tackle opportunities when they're presented, whether that means there's a new content acquisition. Again, mergers and acquisitions are constant in our industry. And so that might present really great opportunity. And being able to be flexible enough to get a product out to market that utilizes that new content library is really important. Also making sure that, again, some of those legacy systems and workflows can still be managed and maintained and deliver value because there's so much richness there, but at the same time, they might be expensive to maintain or operate. So there's that sort of survivability aspect to it. But with that, there's, again, so much opportunity. And one of the things that we see is that culture, engineering culture, product development culture, is one of the things that our clients love the most about Wizeline. Again, it's sometimes plugging in a particular skill set, that's great, or bringing a particular expertise on a technology imperative, right? But also the culture around the entire company and around the product teams and engineering teams about how to think, how to marry the business side with the technology side is where that's our sweet spot. Of course, all in the cloud, right? So the theme is develop multidisciplinary teams. We hire people who have a broad range of skill sets, both personally and professionally. And then, of course, they're aligned to very distinct functional areas. But by making teams that we call pods based on those different skill sets and different ways of thinking, that helps us create sort of a healthy dialogue, healthy challenge to each other to make sure that all perspectives are looked at, and then the right solutions are discovered and found throughout our process. It's very experimental, it's very iterative, again, relies very much on flexible technologies like AWS. We operate in a bunch of different functional verticals, as I was mentioning, and we draw from these verticals to create these teams, working closely with clients, of course, to augment, and some clients or customers have great skills in these particular areas already, and we'll look to match and make sure we come up with the right mix. So user experience and product design, understanding the users, whether those are internal users of a particular system, whether they're end customers, using a direct-to-consumer mobile app. We want to understand fully the entire experience there. Agile product development, which includes all of our engineering teams, and various solutions. We do have OTT solutions and how we could do agile transformation and DevOps transformation, which is something I'll talk about shortly. Overall DevOps and actually making sure that the systems work well and the processes are tied from end to end in the cloud is super imperative. We draw on that team quite a bit. Data and AI, looking to optimize for all the data to make sure that either it's a CPM drive to make sure you can get more CPM out of your data, out of your audience, making sure products are effective, making sure systems operate efficiently. So we rely heavily on data-driven decisions. And then maintaining things long-term, right? Again, sometimes it's something you can build and maintain long-term, but it still needs to be scalable, flexible, adaptable. We have a team that helps to manage that. So I'll give you a few examples of how we've actually done this with clients. We worked with a large client. They have 100 million users globally, and they had an aging CMS system. I won't name names, but the editorial team hated it, and the technology team hated managing it. Constant downtime, very inefficient to use, so they wanted to revamp the whole thing. So again, what we did is we wanted to approach it in a holistic way, understanding what are the pain points from the editorial team and the technology team to come up with the right solution. And then also there's a large element in all of our work around experimentation. And this is where AWS plays a great role, is that you can spin something up quickly, test it out at scale, does it break, fix it, try it again, right? And so by going through this whole process, we were able to create a system that was really effective, ended up having zero downtime, unheard of, right? But thanks to AWS, that worked. It was basically a headless CMS built on WordPress, so the front end could be totally agnostic, meet the content demands of now and the future. The old system didn't handle video very well. Obviously, video is more and more popular, more and more important, so we wanted to make sure that it could scale to that demand. I think that's it, yeah. We'll get to some architecture in a moment. I know everyone loves to see that. So another example, another CMS one, actually just this past week, a client mentioned this to me, that they had an editor flying across the world. He tried to publish a story, or did publish a story while he was on a layover between Tokyo and Bangkok. And then as he was in the air on the next leg, realized that the story needed editing. Was able to log in through the magic of in-flight Wi-Fi, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, and edit the story, and then republish. And that didn't only republish to digital, but also to their print distribution arm. And so, again, this is showing that by having these types of systems that are super flexible, you can still keep the legacy business going, adapt to your digital business, and operate anywhere. So the newsroom now has become anywhere. They still have those. I've been in them, but they're less and less like the old days of people rushing around to get to print, and there's more flexibility there to again meet demands of both the technology and the end user experience. Architecture, I told you. So another client we worked with was trying to optimize CPMs. Again, in publishing, the challenge is in an ad-driven business right now. Eyeballs are moving all over the place, but they sit on a ton of data, and this particular publisher has a large number of publications, each with their own ad business. And what they wanted to do, the thesis was, let's bring all that together and see if we can squeeze higher CPMs out of particular segments. So what that involves was taking all the first-party and third-party data that they had on their audience, and then marrying that with a bunch of clickstream data per day to individual users. This was terabytes of data per day that had to be ingested and worked through the entire system to actually make sense of it. So we set up fairly complex architecture in the beginning, again, with the idea to iterate and experiment. There was a lot of, again, healthy debate on this particular project, even with the chief data officer and the head of advertising on the client side, battling it out for which technologies to use and things like that. And we played a great role in the experimentation phase. So I think the other way to look at how to utilize some of these technologies is when there is a decision or a conflict like that. What should we do? How should we build this? Well, let's try it. Let's build something quickly and experiment, run the data through it, see what happens. And it turned out some of the technologies that the chief data officer wanted to use didn't work. They didn't scale to the level that was needed. And we were able to sort of help them arrive at that decision, right? It's nice for people to come to those decisions on their own. We can tell them, of course, but that doesn't always work well. So show and tell, right? So we were able to show what was going to work and ultimately decide on the right architecture for the program. The first segment that we built and ran through had 10% higher CPM, and it's been going more and more ever since. So you're generating more revenue on existing audiences using intelligent systems like this. Okay. Don't be Danny DeVito, sending entire emails to your office. I actually love this project. This was a really cool project that does tackle the mass office emails that we all love. We secretly do love them because you get to delete them right away and clean up your inbox, right? Because you don't read them. You get these emails about some latest announcement, whatever, or what's for lunch that day. No one reads them. So the client that we had was, again, another publishing client that sat on a bunch of data and news information. And what they were being asked by other companies and talking to other companies, this actually was born at Davos. This whole product was born at Davos, which is like nothing ever comes out of Davos of value, but this did. Other companies were saying, we send out all these internal communications. No one reads them. It's not really effective. How can we solve this? How can we bring more relevant data and information to people when they need it? So again, the minds of Davos were all talking and came up with a concept where you could essentially marry the publisher feeds. So the publisher has all this data around markets, news, information, podcasts, various licensed content, and then the company information. And the company wants to still make sure their employees know stuff, know what's happening, can get access to things like the directory or knowledge bases or help desk or whatever that might be, and get those announcements in a way that they actually might utilize. So what we did is we built a system that would feed all this data in, analyze it, figure out which would be relevant to a particular job type. So if you're in HR, maybe you want to get HR news. If you're in marketing, you want to get marketing news. Feed that in, allow people to actually discover the app and make it useful for them, tailor it to their needs, and then also bring in all that data from the different sources on the company side. And so again, like from a technology perspective, it maybe doesn't sound as complicated as it might be, but every single one of these data sources has some unique and proprietary method. And so especially when you start scaling this out to multiple clients, what we did is we built a white label app that pulled in all the publisher feed. The publisher wanted to make the white label app that then they could go talk to other people about and customize the right side. So this essentially put existing content that they had, existing news and content that they already had or licensed into a new experience that created a new revenue stream. So again, this is an area where media is not necessarily going out to have to acquire or create something new, but can actually use something you already have and create an experience around it and flexible technology that allows you to take it to other customers. That, again, creates a really cool new revenue stream for them. All right. And so those are some examples. The thing that we find now that enables all of this, it's not just the teams and the skill sets that they have, but higher performance from the teams that you have. Doing something in 6 months might be acceptable, may not be acceptable. And how do you figure out what you can really do more quickly? And we found that by adopting a DevOps-centered culture within our engineering and product teams, we're able to be more flexible, be more adaptable. And this is something that we lean heavily into. So you may be familiar with some of this stuff, but the concept of lean plus DevOps is these are the principles that we follow. So the principles of flow are things like work in small batches, make work visible, limit work in progress time, identify constraints and blow them up. So we focus on that with every single team. Amplifying feedback loops, again, kind of a no-brainer, but making sure that people all throughout the company understand the feedback from customers, from end users, system admins, whatever that might be, because if no one knows what those pain points are, they're not going to help focus on them or help solve them. And creating a culture of continuous experimentation and learning. As I said before, every project we do, we try to come up with various experiments that we can run. And what that does is that doesn't only get you a better solution in the end, but it also keeps the team really engaged. And of course, talent retention and all those sort of things are really important. So to every company, right? Whether you're a services provider, a media company, oil and gas, whatever you might be. Keeping that talent interested, learning, moving on to the next thing, very important. So these are some of the core principles that we follow there. And then how do you actually apply that more to your organization, and what does that mean sort of on a day-to-day basis? So one of the first things you can do is adopt automation as much as possible. And with AWS, we use a number of the tools that have been talked about, but Cloud Commit, Cloud Build, Cloud Front for app development, and we've seen that this can instantly reduce cost. Reducing the provisioning time and deployment time is super important, so things like OpsWorks help with that. What this also does is not just decrease the deployment time, but also helps to make sure that things are, again, more automated, less human involvement, less failure rates, which leads to the fourth point, reducing the failure rate. So the more you can reduce the failure rate, the more you can work in batches that don't affect things downstream, working in microservices architectures, that helps protect the system, helps protect teams, again, fosters experimentation, make sure things can run more efficiently. And when things break, it doesn't destroy the whole system. So that project I referenced around the CMS with zero downtime, that's a key factor. That's a key reason for that. And then the last one, the unplanned work. This is again one of the themes from Accelerate and the DevOps Handbook. Of course, you always have unplanned work. The more you can reduce that, the more you can manage that. You make work visible. It's it makes things easier. Now, AWS doesn't have a tool yet to invent time. I'm sure they're working on it, but at some point they'll have that, and we can utilize it. But for now, it's just try to limit unplanned work. This is a quote from one of our DevOps leads that I think just sums up what we're talking about really succinctly. So for DevOps transformation to be successful, it's imperative to implement practices that allow the operation to scale and adapt. These practices will generate a bidirectional flow of autonomy and trust within your organization. Promoting psychological safety and visibility of work will enable teams to become agents of change. So again, this applies to any industry. I think in media, it's just super important because of the flexibility that we need to have in our business and the closeness that the technology teams and product teams need to have to the business. And so the more you can adopt these types of practices, honestly, the better off your organization will be. So is DevOps culture really the key in media? Again, it depends. Merge and acquisition activity is always crazy and will disrupt teams from getting into a nice flow and then realizing they have to adapt to a different process or legacy systems that just don't work and don't fit into these types of things. It'll take time. But it is still super important. I think having the openness, having the agility, and more time for critical thinking is very important. So sort of sum up here, to unlock the full capabilities, again, using flexible tools in AWS is very important so that your teams can build things out more quickly, they challenge each other, they come up with different perspectives, and can build things faster. Implementing DevOps practices and tools across your organization helps remove constraints. Of course, working in the cloud removes constraints. And be open to and enable change and experimentation. So I think that's it.